right, today we're going to talk about wealth protection. You've accumulated or you're accumulating substantial wealth. But how do you protect it? Well, there's no simple answer to this, so we're going to go ahead and just do a very, very basic overview. But this will get you started. And as in the rest of transitions, this is but a starting point. And from here, you can build upon this foundation with all sorts of supplemental learning. In order to construct a comprehensive plan, it should cover 4 elements. Your living scenario. So now you're working, you're living, how are you going to go ahead and pay the bills and move on? Number 2, your disability scenario. Number 3, your retirement scenario. And 4, your death scenario. If the financial plan covers all of that, it's a comprehensive plan. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Your living scenario. Okay, you're working, you're living under your means, you fund wealth creation, 12 to 15% of your gross income going away. You fund that emergency account, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses to begin with, and it could be longer than that as you get deeper into your career. You want to be cautious with debt, particularly consumer debt. A mortgage, that's okay. A loan or a credit card to pay for vacation, no. And remember, during your working years, engage in continuous improvement to make you more sought after and valuable in the marketplace. A conscious strategy to protect your employability. Let's move on to the next one, the disability scenario. This is protection in case you can't work, usually for a medical reason. So say you got in a wicked car accident and you're in a wheelchair and you're going through rehab to get back on your feet and you can't work for now. The money would come in through an insurance policy, sometimes paid wholly or in part by your employer. And there's 2 types of disability policies at a macro level, short-term disability and long-term disability. Check out the amount that your policy pays. Most people, when they go to work for a company, they see it's in there, but they've never said, well, in the event that catastrophe strikes, what do I do? How much will I get? Will it be enough? They don't do that. And then look at your budget and you see your exposure, what you'd get versus what it costs to be you, and if there's a variance there, positive or negative. Disability insurance is expensive. And I think one of the big reasons, there's a lot of fraud, a lot of bad behavior in that industry. So it really jacks the price up. Most people, when they're young, if their employer doesn't cover this, they roll the dice and take their chances. And that's what I did. Again, because of the expense, you need to prioritize early on in your career, your living scenario, your wealth creation scenario, and that emergency account, which is going to be your buffer, and we covered that, and there's so many reasons to put that into place. Now let's move on to number 3, your retirement scenario. Early on in your career, it's all about funding. As you approach retirement, it's all about knowing how to maintain your wealth and to go ahead and draw the necessary funds out of it so you can go ahead and pay your expenses without going to work every day. It's key in retirement to enter with no debt because that makes the cost of you being you cheaper. And that's got lots of benefits because then you don't need as much money coming in because you're not servicing debt. I suggest as you begin to get started in your 20s, get a professional opinion on how you're doing. So you set up your initial plan. You've got like the 6 steps we went through. You showed you have the discipline to do that, and then that's a good time to go ahead and put a fresh set of eyes on it with a financial planner, which will cover, how are you going to live during retirement? And to do this, again, I suggest a certified financial planner. They call them CFPs, really rigorous training. And these people can go ahead, and this is all they do, and they dig in and they're dynamite. Or a licensed security broker. And it's best to secure both via a reference from a friend or someone you admire. So you got a lot of respect for somebody in the business world or somebody in your life. Find out the professionals they use and see if you can get a referral to get in there. And then finally, your death scenario. This is covered by life insurance. Many employers make this part of their benefits package. You need to determine if that's sufficient. If you're young and single, it's not really that urgent. But if you have a family, especially if you have kids, then you need to determine, absent you, how would your heirs be taken care of? At a macro level, there's two types of life insurance: whole life and term. Term is a policy that agrees to pay an amount in the event of your death for a specific period of time, as in the term. And it's very affordable, and that's because term has no cash value until you die. It has but one job: to replace income. And it's very, very affordable. Whole life, on the other hand, coverage that lasts your whole life, builds up a cash value. It combines, in a sense, life insurance and an investment. But most experts that I have followed say buy term and invest the difference that you would have spent to get whole life, and invest it yourself, and you'll come out much, much better. That's what I did. Other insurance, you might want to pick up tenant homeowners. God forbid the person next door where you're living all of a sudden has a fire, you get all sorts of smoke damage, you need to go ahead and be covered for that. Or someone breaks into your apartment, you need to go ahead and be covered for that. Health insurance, whether the employer pays for it or not. And then you want to be mindful as you're using these policies that you have some influence with your doctor to keep costs down. I always ask for generic medicines. They're a fraction of the cost and they're just as good. But sometimes the doctors are used to writing prescriptions for a name brand. But if you ask for a generic, they often can accommodate that, and that saves money because you pay part of your health insurance. Then there's a thing called an umbrella policy. You want to keep this secret. And when you have assets, this is a large amount of liability coverage. It serves, think about it like this, extra insurance, and it's very inexpensive. So in the event that you were to get sued because of a car accident, you've got so much on your policy, your umbrella policy would go in and supplement if there was like a judgment against you, or somebody was to slip and fall when they're leaving your house. You've got liability coverage on your homeowner's policy, but then if it was to exceed that, you've got this extra buffer. And the reason you keep it secret is because if people know that you have this policy, they often go ahead and are more apt to take an aggressive action at you. Prenuptials. This is a contract between two people. List all the property that each of them own, as well as debt, and it spells out property rights for each in the event that the marriage was to dissolve. Varies from state to state, and both of you need attorneys in order to go ahead and make these work. I encourage them for two reasons. If you're flirting with a divorce, it's one less thing to fight about. It's already decided. Second, if you follow the guidance from this course, you will be in a vast minority of people at your age who get off to such a strong start and set themselves up for success. And I believe you shouldn't do anything that forces you to potentially take a step backwards financially. So protect yourself. And I hope that you never have to use it. But it's another wall of wealth protection. And then there's a will. It determines property distribution upon death. If no will, state to state, they will decide what the distribution will be. And they take a fee for doing this. Wills are inexpensive. So make sure you have one laid out. It can be a very simple will, and as your life becomes more complicated, they get more complicated too, and then you'd want to get an estate attorney to help you sort things out. Now, about money to family and close friends. The more successful you are, the more financially powerful you are. See, this is good why you don't want to broadcast this. People will come to you and they'll ask for a loan. People will come to you and ask for money. People will say, will you help me put a down payment on my house? Or would you help me get this car? Well, here, you've got to be strong yourself in order to help others. So there's no giving money away. Loans are rarely loans. They turn into gifts. And often they strain relationships because people are embarrassed that they owe you money and they can't pay it back. And then if someone asks you to co-sign for a loan, no. And the reason they do that is because the lender themselves won't approve the loan unless there's a co-signer. So why should you? Again, if you're not strong, there could be disaster on the tracks for a family member down the road, and you want to help, but if you kind of weakened yourself along the way, your ability to do that will be less. As your parents get older, if they have assets, you need to look into trusts. The government can deplete one's assets. It's nothing short of elder abuse. So they have these plans that if you, let's say, you accumulated substantial wealth and you go into the nursing home, the person across the hall who didn't accumulate any wealth, the person to your left and right didn't accumulate any wealth, Medicaid pays for their nursing home. But if you have money, the government bleeds down your estate, and once that money is used up, and if you have money coming to you, there's a threshold, and I'm not putting out numbers now because they change all the time, and again, this is state by state. You want to get your arms around it. But I tell you something, this is horrible that older people can just be flattened financially by the government itself. Okay, let's move on. You know you're in trouble if you can't afford to pay your entire credit card balance at the end of every month, or you pay the minimum only on your student loans, or you borrow against your 401k or your Roth or whatever vehicle it is, or you borrow against your home. These are all telltale signs of danger. You cannot afford to put 15% into wealth creation, which will set you up in later life. You're in trouble. You're in trouble if you cannot take the full match from your employer. You're in trouble if you cannot fund and maintain 3 to 6 month emergency fund. And you're not sure how to navigate to financial independence. That's not a strong position to be in. You do not know how much you spend and what you spend it on. And you must borrow for a down payment of an asset. Like, let's say you're going to get a home. You've got to borrow in order to get the down payment. These are all warning signs. You borrow against items that don't have an ROI, a depreciating asset, like a car. You should be paying cash for those as you get in your career. In the beginning of your career, I can see a car note no more than 3 years. But after that, you need to be able to save up, trade in the car, add your savings to it, and pay cash. It's a depreciating asset. You know you're in trouble if you are going to engage in an expense, like a vacation, and you're going to rack it up on your credit cards or a note. You can't pay it off at the end of that month. No. You can't do that. You know you're in trouble if you cash in your 401k and you pay a penalty, then you take the money to buy something, let's say paying down your credit cards when you switch jobs. Lots of people do, particularly when they switch jobs. They see that big hunk of money they had in a 401k with their employer, and they're tempted to go ahead and solve another problem. Big mistake. If you do get into trouble, you can dig out of it. And the sooner you recognize this, the better. But those telltale signs, we'll have them in links and resources, would really be the early warning signal to say danger ahead. So if you were in trouble and your head's spinning and you're not comfortable, I would go ahead and tell you to do 3 things. Attend Financial Peace University. You can Google that. Read the Total Money Makeover And then read Baby Steps Millionaire. That one's to motivate you. These are all Dave Ramsey products. This is really, really powerful stuff. And they've got step-by-step guides of getting you from a bad place financially to a place of great strength. And when you seek guidance, we talked about certified financial planners or a licensed broker, somebody who's older and more conservative than you. See, what's important about that, someone who has been through like the Great Recession of 2008, and they learned from it, and they're bringing that experience into helping you build wealth. It's important to go ahead and do that. Rare is there a way to get rich quick. But you know what you can do? And we've shown you in this class, this is how you get rich slowly, but you do get rich. Again, this was but a brief overview. Now build upon it. As your wealth grows, adjust this plan as necessary. And we talked about this before, don't flaunt your emerging wealth. The attention it attracts for flaunting wealth is not going to help you. And know that rarely does someone lose wealth during conservative investing. It just doesn't happen. Now get moving. I'll see you next time, and I'll conclude this course and wish you well. Until then, see you.